How would you say you were introduced to the topic of the Palestinian liberation struggle?
Well, you know what? Israel's going to hate this, but it was October 7th.
Really?
Yeah. Which they must do in order to fulfill international law on the prevention of genocide.
Yeah.
Which should really be like the most important law to abide by,
Yeah.
don't you think? But yeah, we were talking about...
Unless you're backed by the US, then.
Yeah, unless you're backed by the US, in which case, like, genocide's fine as long as you're making money.
Yeah.
I do not trust legacy media. They are embroiled with way too many like biases and interests of the Epstein class. So that's why I don't trust legacy media, because it's like completely infiltrated, and a lot of the Epstein class are Zionists. Shocker. Zionism is a colonial project, an imperial project. From that moment, I was like, this is the ultimate injustice of my time.
There should be humanitarian intervention to stop atrocities such as genocide. And yet this same guy is actually a very staunch Zionist.
You cannot just enact a genocide in the place where Jesus comes from and then expect the rest of the world to not be hyper focused on this area.
You don't need to create a bioweapon to commit genocide. I mean,
This is so true.
And the Israelis have proved that.
This is so true.
And you don't need to, and it's fine. And the Israelis have proved as well that as long as you have a powerful backer, you can
do anything you want.
Yeah. Over the last 2 years, we've seen the media landscape change tremendously, mostly due to the so-called democratization of media that we've seen on social media specifically. And we've seen the public veer away from mainstream media, move towards getting their news from sites like TikTok, Instagram, etc. And this has fundamentally changed the way that we as consumers interact with the mainstream media, how we get our news, how we perceive the world. And I am honored to be joined today by someone who has helped impart news onto the masses through the medium of social media, Dr. Phoebe. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
So you had your start on TikTok a few years ago, right?
Yeah. I think I've been doing TikTok content for maybe 4 years pretty consistently.
Yeah.
3 years now.
Could you take us through how your content evolved over the years?
Oh, yeah, I was kind of thinking about this on the train on the way over, and I thought, did I actually delete any of my old content when I was just doing thirst traps?
Oh, no.
But I don't think I did. So go catch it now before it's gone. No, I didn't really envisage that this would be the way I went with my content at all. I think initially I was just throwing. Can I swear on this? No.
Well, if you can.
Throwing poop at the wall
Okay.
and seeing what sticked.
Yeah.
And then throughout this whole process, I was doing my PhD. My PhD was in marine geology, so I was very much focused on kind of like environmental issues. Then I found DM25 on a TikTok video, and I literally got in contact with them. I built up a little bit of a following by then, so they were a little bit interested in talking to me. And then that was kind of my segue into making. I was already making some political content.
DM25, that's the organization.
Pan-European.
It's run by the
political.
Greek economic.
Yeah, Yanis Varoufakis.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the Greek finance minister post 2008 financial crisis. He was in the Syriza party, if I'm correct about that. And then he actually sort of betrayed the Greek people because he was elected under a kind of like mandate to not sell off all of their public assets to the absolute vulture capitalists that were coming in from the European Union after like Greece did very, very badly during the financial collapse. But when he got into power, he essentially found out that all of the contracts had already been signed. And the only thing that he could do at that point was slow the process. So I think kind of he at that point also became extremely disillusioned with the current state of like Greek and then also European politics. And this was the fire that like was lit within him to start his own political movement. And it is actually a big political movement. There's thousands of members like scattered all across Europe. You can go on the website and literally see a map of all of the different members, like all over the world. I mean, all over Europe mainly. And it's a really interesting organization to be involved with because they have a lot of pretty, I guess, like well-established backers. You know, you've got like Zizek, you've got Chomsky, which I guess is a little bit more contentious now.
Maybe we'll get into that, maybe we won't. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that one. That was a bit of a left field shock, but there we go. And just also, so just some really interesting organizations involved with them, like the Progressive International, which were the people who convened the Hague Group in Bogota, in Colombia, for the Gaza like tribunal, was it, where some of the member states came together to actually discuss came out with a 6-point plan of how to actually stop Israel from doing a genocide, which they must do in order to fulfill international law on the prevention of genocide. Yeah, which should really be like the most important law to abide by. Yeah, don't you think? But yeah, we were talking about
unless you're backed by the US, then.
Yeah, unless you're backed by the US, in which case, like, genocide's fine as long as you're making money.
Yeah, exactly.
Money is actually the most important thing.
There you go. So DM25 and your social media.
Yeah, so I started doing some content for DM25. Like with DM25, they would give me some issues they wanted to address. So that was kind of my first foray into doing content for an organization, and also on topics which I otherwise wouldn't have necessarily been on my personal radar, but it felt so purposeful to be able to bring this information to people when I knew that I wouldn't have come across this information had I not been in contact with these people. And then being part of that node of the spread of like really, really key knowledge to so many people, it gave me a sense of achievement which I'd never really felt before, of feeling like useful to humanity, which I guess was what I was trying to achieve through my academic career as well. But it's a lot slower in academia. You know, you do the research, you do the analysis, you write the papers, you put the papers out, and the papers get read by 30 other people who study the exact same like niche field that you study. So it kind of like the wheels of justice are very slow within the academic world. And even when it comes to trying to get your research used in a context which is important, that's almost impossible to get it actually in front of a decision maker, to make some change based on a recommendation that you have made about something. There's no direct kind of pipeline to do this. So I have this feeling like this, I guess it's rage, to be honest. I guess it's like rage, like deep in the pit of my being, that I have to express. And the best way to be able to get that out of my body is through content creation.
So in your evolution as a content creator, and I would say, well, you're akin to a kind of a newsbreaker. I don't know what the term is.
Yeah, that's been a bit more recent, I think. Yeah. Like before, I would talk about these quite like overarching concepts. I guess I was like pretty into philosophy at the time. I was like reading a lot. And I just thought like, oh, this is super interesting. I would love to just, get this information out to a couple of people, see what other people have to say on the topic more than anything. I was like engaging a lot in the comments at the time because I was really just interested. Like I maybe didn't have that many people in my material life who I could just kind of like espouse these like crazy theories that I had to and kind of bounce it off. So I found a space on TikTok that like really helped me to cultivate that, like meeting other creators and then also just like talking to anyone who would engage with my content on that kind of stuff. But then it evolved pretty quickly, especially post October 7th, to more of a rolling news cycle style of things, where the stories that I would talk about were a specific event based off like some evidence that I had for a specific event, which I would usually pick up also from social media, but try my hardest to always pinpoint the actual source. But you know that with a lot of the content that was coming out of, especially Gaza from like the early parts of the genocide, it was literally people just filming on their phones. So I don't know if there was any other way to verify the source more than I saw it with my own eyes, posted from a Palestinian person's account. This is what happened in that particular area at that particular time. Sometimes you can obviously wait for another news source to pick it up and then use their reporting as your source for this. But as I've begun taking this role more seriously, because I do realize that a lot of people are getting a majority of their information about what's happening in the world around them from social media. Like, as I've been taking that more seriously, it's become a lot more important to me to have like credible sources and to ensure that people are able to go and read more about the stories that I'm breaking. Because I make content very, very specifically for Instagram and TikTok, which acknowledges the fact that people have extremely short attention spans. So I try not to make content which goes over 2 minutes. If I can say everything that I think I need to say about something in around a minute, then I'm happy, because people really don't have enough attention span to actually listen to something longer than that, which is so crazy that we're at this point where people's attention span is that short. But if I look at my analytics, for example, I see that the average watch time is 20 seconds. So actually, if there's anything really important that you need to say about that topic, you have to get it in the first 20 seconds. And that's if you've managed to grab people's attention enough in the first 3 seconds, because that's when the watches kind of drop off. So you're kind of negotiating all of these different, these different, I guess, aspects you have to include in your content, whilst also trying to be true to the story, true to the context. So there's a lot of things to think about.
How do you decide what particular stories to report on?
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to this in something I said earlier about the rage, because what the rage is a response to is injustice. It's become very clear to me since I was like informally diagnosed with autism.
Informally?
Well, by a therapist that I had when I had to take some time off work because I got burnout.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to my therapist sort of, how I was feeling, like what was like the conditions that made me into this state, I guess. And after it was like definitely precipitated by what happened like by October 7th.
Okay.
And it was mainly because I would go into work and like want to talk to other people about what was happening, or inviting them to come to protests, or just trying to educate people, actually, because it really seemed like nobody knew what was going on. And then instead of engaging with me on that, I would sometimes be thrown back like very, very clear, unsubstantiated propaganda, like, oh, but did you not see the video where Hamas beheaded all of those babies? And I was like, show me it. If you've seen the video, show me the video. I actually definitely at the time I was like a bit crazy. Like, I would love to see it. I would love to see this video. If you actually got it, then show me. Obviously the video didn't exist. And this is something that even Biden regurgitated, completely unsubstantiated.
Yeah.
And it was instances like this, but like cumulatively, which sort of made me actually go a little bit mental. I think on one of the days at work, I was just going around calling everyone Nazis, and then I left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I went a little bit crazy. So then I had to go explain to my therapist like what was going on, because I knew like the way I'm reacting is like, it's not normal. And I now believe like maybe it is actually normal, the way that I reacted.
The only normal
and
reaction.
Everybody else was just like cut off from their humanity. I'm not really sure. So sorry to my colleagues if you see this, but I literally went crazy. So I was talking to my therapist, and she was like, seems to me that you might have like a slight obsession with justice. And I was like, okay. She's like, I'm going to do an autism assessment with you.
That's an interesting
Pardon?
kind of step to take from, okay, you're obsessed with justice. I'm going to...
No, it's been fully pathologized.
Really?
Yeah, no, like having an obsession with justice is fully a diagnostic criteria
Wow.
for. I actually got diagnosed with Asperger's,
Okay.
which is not. You can't be diagnosed with Asperger's in the UK anymore. You get diagnosed with ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder, because Asperger's is like, I think it was actually made up during the Nazi times.
Oh.
And I think it was actually the doctor who made it up, was his last name was Asperger's. And it was actually to basically save autistic people from being
Interesting.
by the Nazis, because an Asperger's person is someone who has autism but has low support needs.
Okay.
So you don't like, you're verbal, you know, you can probably have a job, you can like look after yourself, like that kind of thing, but you just experience the world in a autism spectrum way. And one of the diagnostic criteria for like actually all autism is to have an obsession with justice.
Very interesting.
So Western psychology actually pathologizes justice.
That's very interesting, and I don't know what it says about Western medicine or.
It's like psychology for sure. It's I really thought that was like the strangest thing, and it was, and there's quite a few questions in the 2 questionnaires that I did with my therapist, which involved like how you feel when you experience injustice, and I have like physical sensations in my body of pain.
Okay.
And that's what I mean when I say like the fire in my stomach, I guess, like the middle.
Yeah.
And like I feel it, so I know exactly when I have to make content on something, or when I have to break a story, or when something is important that needs to go out, because I feel pain, and then like actually a sense of relief, like catharsis, when I have made the content, and I'm like. Like I've said it, and especially if it's something that I'm kind of like happy with the way I've said it. Sometimes, I guess you can probably tell if you look through my content, like some of it is like higher quality, some of it is lower quality. Like sometimes I've winged it a bit harder. Sometimes I've done more research and actually got myself caught up a little bit in what I was saying as I'm talking. But for me, the important thing is getting it out. Like a lot of people want to make content, or like could definitely make content, but are like too perfectionist to post it. You know, they make something, or they think about doing something, and they go like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to make it to the standard that like I want to make it.
But sometimes the standard that you're looking for is not even like, it's only you who really sees that as imperfect. Some people just see it as
exactly.
As a very good video.
You have to remember that like not everybody's going to watch your content as many times as you're going to watch your content and pick apart every single like thing that you said wrong, or every single time that like you like glitch between a frame, or every single time that like you messed up the transcription or whatever in the captions. Like most people are not going to notice those things, so it's better for you to just get the content out. And especially if it's something which is time sensitive, like I've been doing a lot of content on the hunger strikers from Palestine Action. And with that is extremely time sensitive. Like Heba, today she's on 57 days of hunger strike. Like hunger strikers in the past have died on the 46th day. You know, if you look up the hunger strikes from the 1980s, the Irish political prisoners, some of them were MPs as well. They won whilst they were in prison. They'd already died by this time. So she's just showing a level of resilience that most people cannot even imagine.
And when I think one thing that the mainstream media, at least, is not shining a light on is what the strikers are asking for. They're not asking to be, to be released and named innocent, right? They're just
asking for a trial.
They're asking to be treated as human beings.
Yeah.
They're not. They're asking to be treated as if as any other prisoner in the system.
Mm-hmm.
But things have been taken away from them. They've been treated as if they are quote unquote terrorists, even though what they are allegedly accused of is property damage.
Exactly.
For the most part. Actually,
they weren't arrested under the Palestine Action hadn't been prescribed as a terrorist organization at the time of their arrest. They also, what they have exposed here is really the 2-tier police, like the 2-tier justice system, which they are now experiencing, and which other activists like have experienced in the past as well, and which they will do in the future. So what we're looking at when we're looking at the Palestine Action activists, the hunger strikers, and like all of the political prisoners is a potentiality for our own futures. Like, this might not be an issue that you personally care about, but there might be an issue in future which personally affects you and which you don't agree with and which you will be led to protest against or to dissent against the government for something. Like, a lot of people don't like digital IDs. Okay? So imagine in the future, you are being forced to like, give your information, your biometrics, whatever, to a digital ID, and you want to protest against that. Like, these exact same powers that are being used on the hunger strikers right now and on the other Palestine Action protesters could be used on you.
Yeah.
And your complicity with the way that they're being treated now it doesn't bode well for anything in the future. You can't turn around and look at the government as it is today and trust them that they're not going to do anything which personally affects you in the future. Like that would be like absolutely ridiculous. And what they've really shone a light on here is the fact that they have been kept way past the 6th month, like what was it, like custodial sentence length or whatever.
Remand or...
Yeah, exactly. They usually don't keep prisoners before trial for more than 6 months. They have not been like allowed out on bail, obviously, whereas other people who have been, you know, imprisoned for things like pedophilia, imprisoned for things like sexual offences, they have been let out on bail. Like they see these people who have, bearing in mind, like they're a direct action group that damages property used for war. They are yoking them in the same group category as people who are doing like sex crimes on people, who are murdering people. Like it's a slow descent. Not even slow. It's a very quick and obvious descent into fascism, into totalitarianism, into tyranny, whatever word, or authoritarianism, whatever word you want to use, to describe a government that you don't have any say in as a citizen of that country.
Yeah. I want to talk about fascism because you've made a lot of content about the UK's descent into fascism. But before we get onto that, Palestine. How would you say you were introduced to the topic of the Palestinian liberation struggle?
Well, you know what? Israel's going to hate this, but it was October 7th.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
genuinely.
what did you know about Palestine before October 7th?
Actually, extremely little.
Okay.
Extremely little. Like, I'm going to hold my hands up and say that I wasn't really plugged into like international struggle in the way that I wanted to be. I was very interested in it. I've been following the Progressive International for a while, and they are a international organization that deals with human rights violations like all over the world and various different liberation struggles in lots of different regions. But obviously, like everything is self-study. So it was finding the time and finding the spark to be interested in like this region because of this and this thing that's happening over here because of this and whilst also doing a PhD and trying to make content on other stuff and and then October 7th happened, and it was obviously all over every single media outlet. And my initial reaction towards it was to absolutely ignore everything that came out of Western media outlets because I don't trust them. I do not trust legacy media. They are embroiled with way too many like biases and interests of the Epstein class. You know, the class of people who are so obscenely rich that money has absolutely no value to them at all, and they trade exclusively in secrets and definitely exist because they are being exposed as we speak throughout the Epstein files. And like, this is not a comprehensive. There are so many other actors within this class of people. So that's why I don't trust legacy media, because it's like completely infiltrated, and a lot of the Epstein class are Zionists. Shocker, because Zionism is a colonial project, an imperial project, which is entirely trying to think of the most concise way to say this.
You can say it's a
We're-
podcast.
yeah.
It's long-form content. Do what you want.
Jesus. Which, is funded by the Epstein class. It's organized by the Epstein class, and it benefits the Epstein class. So
from the get-go, you weren't buying anything.
no, I didn't buy anything.
Interesting.
Like, I don't like see shit that's coming up. Sorry.
It's all right.
I don't see poop that's coming out of Sky News or BBC or whatever and go like, oh yeah, I'm just going to believe what they say. Which is like so shocking to me, especially when we talk about people who are, I'm going to say left and right wing here, even though those are categories which just are used for our own oppression in the first place. But right wing people who propound to be so like anti-establishment and then very much toe the line, which is espoused. Where are these words coming from? I'm so sorry. Like, what's happening? Like, espoused. Anyway, espoused by these same media outlets. So they're anti-establishment, but toe the line of legacy media.
Yeah.
Can you make that make sense?
Square that circle.
Yeah, please. That makes absolutely no sense to me. So I didn't believe anything which was coming out of there. And obviously I already followed a lot of people on social media who are very much like more subversive than legacy media. I was already following quite a few different independent media organizations. So what they started reporting on was what I got my information from there, and then immediately started following Palestinian organizations, Palestinians on the ground, Palestinian diaspora, and trying to get the information from the horse's mouth, and then threw myself completely into trying to contextualize what I was observing. Because in the initial onslaught on Gaza following October 7th, I saw we all saw stuff which humans should never have to endure. Like we bear witness to this, but we understand that people are experiencing this. This is the truth. Like this is what is occurring. And like from that moment, I was like, this is the ultimate injustice of my time. This is the raison d'etre for every single human who is born upon this earth at this moment. I also kind of believe that we like choose to come into this life. So we're all here at this time for something, and it's to bear witness to this injustice and to ensure that people are held accountable for it. Because if we allow this to have occurred with impunity, then absolutely anything becomes possible for the forces of oppression and like exploitation, imperialism, colonialism, whatever you want to call it, for that exploitative, dominating like force. Everything becomes possible. We allow it all. And no one is ever going to be safe again. Like no one is safe now because this is still occurring with impunity. So I think from like, I don't know if I'm like a little bit, maybe it comes from the autism as well, but like a bit of pattern recognition, bit of connecting the dots, bit of seeing quite clearly how this is going to manifest in the future and seeing the options available. We either allow it to occur and then allow absolutely anything to occur, or we invest every single moment that we have from this point onwards in holding the people who've done this to account and ensuring that this does not become normalized.
For the benefit of those who maybe don't or haven't had time, and maybe they are interested or have time now to submerge themselves, how would you say you submerge yourself in the literature and content of the struggle in order to bring yourself up to speed?
I think you can go to, this is a bit strange actually, but like just maybe 6 months before October 7th, I randomly became extremely interested in the topic of genocide, like from an academic standpoint. I was kind of gathering resources. I wanted to write a paper about the nexus of ecocide and genocide and how they were very much like interrelated. So I started looking into genocide scholars. So I already had a couple of papers from some genocide scholars, like stored in my Mendeley, my reference manager. And
for the PhD.
yeah, for the PhD. I already had a couple of papers on genocide just waiting, ready to go, which I hadn't like got around to reading. And I picked a couple of the scholars from there because was very much immersed in academia at the time as well. So I thought like, the best way for me to come at this from a way that I'm happy with how the research has been conducted on it is to go from an academic lens. So I would definitely suggest like read some Ilan Pappé. He's a Israeli academic actually.
Yeah.
And he's working at Exeter University. And I'm very lucky to be in contact with one of his students, Chris Kunstler, who's also a content creator.
Yeah.
On this topic pretty much exclusively. I think he did some work with Middle East Eye and stuff as well. And yeah, the first text I really read about Palestine was Ilan Pappé's book. And then from there you can kind of like expand outwards and definitely go to some Palestinian authors to understand the situation like from the horse's mouth. Again, it's so important to always humanize these situations, because you can list the numbers, you can list the statistics, but like until you actually have put yourself in the shoes of somebody who is experiencing it, then you will never be able to, I would say, like devote the appropriate amount of effort to this, because it is it takes a lot of thought, time, effort, I think, to be fully, I guess, like pro-Palestinian, in the sense like you have to be boycotting. Like you have to know where all of the products that you're using are from. And if there's products which you cannot get from non-Zionist entities, then you have to find an alternative or stop using that thing. Like it's a state of being more than it is of something which you just do. But yeah, just read, yeah. And there's so much content out there now.
Yeah,
like there's so much more content out there now than there was before, and so many people have been galvanized by this, which I think is sometimes the only thing that gives me hope that the worst situations can actually seed the biggest, like the most struggle for liberation.
Yeah. It's the struggles for liberation. They're never without cost. Sometimes the cost is very high, and there's always a question, especially with those who are paying the cost. I mean, we're here. Maybe some of my family are paying the cost, but I myself, living in London, I'm living a pretty cushy life, so to speak. But there's always a question of whether it's worth it, and that's probably to be discussed later on. We still haven't seen what the complete consequences of this entire saga has been. But on the topic of academics, I was actually reading something into humanitarian intervention recently, and the failures of the so-called international community to intervene when it was in when the genocide occurred in Rwanda. However, but also the eventual intervention in Kosovo, in which people like Tony Blair, war criminal Tony Blair, was using humanitarian language to justify his the NATO.
He's obviously so evil. Like, have you seen his face? Like, I actually, can you imagine just seeing that in the dark? It's almost as bad as Jeffrey Epstein. Like,
I won't comment on his appearance.
Okay.
I won't comment on his appearance. But I mean, so there was an intervention in Kosovo, but there wasn't one in Rwanda. And then I was reading into kind of the academics that are going into the, like, there's one guy called Walzer, and he's of the view that there should be humanitarian intervention to stop atrocities such as genocide, and yet this same guy is actually a very staunch Zionist.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I find it
just surprise you, don't they?
Yeah, and so like I find it, I'm a bit wary of some people, academics or not, who have very strong opinions on certain subjects, but when it comes to Israel, those opinions all of a sudden they disappear. I don't know why that has to do with. I think it's just because it's an academic.
I just feel like at that point you've got to think, like, what does Israel have on you?
Yeah.
What do they have? Like, Israel is essentially just like a giant intelligence agency. It's like all completely Mossad. That's how they like, I wouldn't say achieved this space in the international stage, because it was very much orchestrated this way. But they have holds over people that I guess other regimes could only imagine, you know,
but
who knows what information
it's a chicken
they
and
have.
egg situation, right? Because there was some people who would say that, you know, this is the Israel lobby and Israel and Mossad, they control, they have the strings. But on the other hand, I mean, Israel is a key component of the US empire, right?
Yeah.
So
oh no, 100%. It's kind of, I would call it like the apical meristem. It's like a biology term for the end of like the root, or like the end of the shoot, which is growing. Like that's the apical meristem. So it's the place where the cell division is occurring and the thing is actually growing from. Like it's the youngest outgrowth of I would go as far as to say like the Holy Roman Empire, but but certainly the American and like the Anglo-sphere empire,
right,
directly into the heart of West Asia. Shockingly enough, right next to some huge, was it like natural gas reserves, oil reserves, just in the Sea of Gaza.
Yeah.
And then serendipitously right next to the clinch point between the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of questions about the interests at play. And we could probably go on days.
And also the Holy Land. If we just forget about that one.
Yeah.
Like the eyes of the world, like how much of the world follows an Abrahamic religion, like billions of people. We're probably like maybe going on like half the humans on Earth have some kind of Abrahamic religion.
Yeah, I would say around 4 billion. More than 4 billion. Yeah.
And even if you think about like, we live in a Church of England country, so even though you might not personally follow yourself any kind of Abrahamic religion, living in this country, we are a Church of England country. I grew up singing songs about Bethlehem. I grew up singing songs about Jerusalem, about Nazareth, like whatever. Like, this place has been imprinted into our perception of reality. You cannot just enact a genocide in the place where Jesus comes from and then expect the rest of the world to not be hyper focused on this area. Like that was one of the, I guess, the biggest things which sort of drew me towards this, or kept me there, because I recognized that definitely Israel is trying to position this as some kind of religious war. Like, although obviously the people high up in the government, a lot of them do profess to be secular Jewish people. I don't know what the frick that means. I think this is not a thing that can exist, because Judaism is a religion.
Yeah, but they believe they're like an ethno-religious group. So
but like that also is not true. Like, you can't be like, Judaism is a religion.
Yeah.
You can convert to Judaism.
Yeah.
So it's a religion. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but it's they have.
You can definitely be persecuted for being Jewish, for sure.
They classify themselves as an ethno-religious group. Yeah. So it's like it's you can be an Orthodox Jew but you're still a Jew even if you're not practicing. It's giving eugenics.
No, because
that's
it's
what they say
giving.
about themselves.
It's like, if you because like, okay, so my degree, I know I studied marine geology, but I actually did quite a lot about genetics, because I was actually doing like diversity assessments using something called metabarcoding, which is where you look at, I was doing bulk metabarcoding. So we were taking environmental DNA out of sediment samples, and then we were sequencing the DNA and looking through the DNA to identify individual species, and then doing diversity analysis on those species. So I also am like a little bit of a geneticist. And when it comes to anything to do with like race and genetics, nothing works. Like, you cannot like define people into categories of race like genetically. It's basically impossible. Like, it actually like there's no kind of like genetic origin to race. Like, we are all so genetically similar. Like, it's kind of like a misnomer even to try to categorize people in that sense. I guess what you can do is what they do with like 23andMe and whatever, is like regionalize it. So you can say like, oh, in this region, a lot of people have these similar regions of their DNA.
23andMe is Israeli, I think.
Yeah, I know. And they've definitely been like messing around with like reanalyzing people's samples well, not reanalyzing, but like reprocessing them essentially. Like there's like a pipeline that you put DNA, which all DNA analysis is actually done on a glorified text editor. So it's literally just like ATDGGCC whatever, and it's just done in a text editor. Like it's not this like fancy crazy thing that I think people think doing like genetic analysis is. It's really, really simplified. Nothing. It's just text. It's just text, and you're lining text up, essentially. But they've been reanalyzing it, and some people who have previously, it said your genetics are from areas like usually in the Levant region, whatever. Like those percentages have been decreasing. In their 23andMe results.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't be giving away my genetics to a random company, to be honest with you. Like that's a lot of data.
Yeah.
A lot of extremely sensitive data, which is going to make a lot of people in the Epstein class very rich.
What do they do with that? What can they do with that data?
What can they? Well, honestly, the worst case scenario would be some kind of bioweapon. It's like specifically designed to target people with certain certain codes in certain regions of their genetic. Yeah, with certain regions of their genetic code. It potentially, but that's like quite fear-mongering, and I don't want to pretend that I actually know anything about this at all, but that's the first thing my mind would jump to, that you could genetically engineer biological weapons to affect certain communities.
Interesting. I mean, well, you don't need to create a bioweapon to commit genocide. I mean,
this is so true.
And the Israelis have proved that.
This is so true.
And you don't need to, and it's fine. And the Israelis have proved as well that as long as you have a powerful backer, you can
do anything you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think brings me on to our descent to fascism. You've created a lot of content on our supposed descent to fascism.
Yes.
What inspired you? Maybe you've touched on this in our conversation, during our conversation.
I don't know.
But specifically, because fascism specifically is a recurring theme.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to us about fascism, the UK, and why you think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah, I use the word fascism. Like for me, language is super important. And I use the word fascism specifically to target my target audience, which is essentially myself, other people that I might meet on the street, my family, like people who like have a similar understanding to me of what things are. So I use fascism in the sense because it's the other side of the imperial boomerang, if that makes sense. So the imperial boomerang is that we have enacted imperialism or colonialism abroad. When that same foreign policy is applied domestically, that domestic policy becomes fascism. So
that's why the Nazis were bad, but the British Empire was good.
Exactly. So it's kind of understanding this dynamic that I want to get people at least the question. I know that it's quite a inflammatory word, just like calling people a Nazi is quite an inflammatory word because we have had it drilled into us throughout our education system that Nazis bad, British good for fighting the Nazis. Like this is probably the only and obviously the fascists as well, because fascism obviously arose in Italy.
Yeah.
And I think, did it precede Nazism slightly? Was fascism then Nazism? No. Okay, I'm not gonna pretend
I couldn't comment on that, to be honest.
But yeah, so fascism is the Italian Nazism.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I lost my train of thought.
What you use evocative language?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is probably the only cut and dry war in history where there was a very obvious goodie and a very obvious baddie. You have the Nazis who were killing all the communists, killing all the trade unionists, killing all the socialists, killing all the Jews, killing all the disabled people, killing all the gay people. Like, it's obviously bad. Like, no one can look at that and be like, oh, that's absolutely fine. Like, clearly bad. Everybody went in there to try and intercept them, try and stop them. I could literally go on around about this. What we don't like to include is actually, it was Russia who won the Second World War. Like, they lost, 27 million people, and at least 10 million of those were the soldiers, the the UK lost still a lot, still very, very many. And I'm still very, very proud of all of the soldiers who fought in the Second World War, fighting the Nazis from every nation. But it's something which I think we have been taught to recognize in other ways through things like George Orwell. So we have an idea about what tyranny or what fascism or what Nazism would look like manifest in our society through this very abstracted lens of these, I would honestly go as far as calling them like controlled opposition. These writers which were allowed to profess their like anti-establishment literature. They were backed by the CIA. They sound like a conspiracy theorist when I say
George
that.
Orwell sees it CIA plant confirmed.
Well, I don't know if I can say like fully confirmed, but yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe not CIA. There's a British version. I think it was called the. Was it like the Cabinet of Information, the something of information? We had we've had many iterations of this. Like we all know the British like secret service, the British like information services, security services. Yeah, exactly. It would have evolved into something like that, but they had like a Bureau of Information, something along those lines. He was definitely working for them.
Interesting.
And a lot of the funding for like the films made from his books and stuff like do come from CIA sources.
Very interesting.
So we have been conditioned in the West, I would say, to observe tyranny and observe fascism in this extreme way, in this extreme and kind of like abstracted and fictional way. So we are not as primed and poised to be able to see its tendrils creep their way into our existence, because everything is quite, I guess, like monotonous, safe, comfortable, and convenient for us. Like we, get up, we go shop, we buy some breakfast, come back home, make it like we're living our cozy, comfortable little lives, and might not see that the arms of surveillance, for example, like the UK is one of the most surveilled countries on earth. Like London has one of the highest concentrations of CCTV cameras out of anywhere on earth, like more than Beijing, So it creeps up on you in ways which are not so frequently discussed in literature. And if you actually look at the story of like 1984, what does it actually teach you? It teaches you that resistance is admirable, but ultimately futile. The book ends and Big Brother is not defeated. Like he's in room 101. Like game over. Like it teaches you that there is no reason to fight it. Like just become a prole, just drink or whatever they're doing down the pubs and things, and not to mount any kind of organized resistance against what we are, against the systems of oppression that we face, which are more, I would say, like they're more hidden than those which are found in the literature, which we usually use to imagine what tyranny looks like. Right. And it'll come down to things like digital IDs. It'll come down to your data being kept and sold and whatever by various different companies with Epstein class links. It'll be you are not allowed to express yourself or have like political freedom to protest against the government or dissent on social media or blah, blah, blah. There are more insidious and small ways that we are being slowly controlled and surveilled more than anything. Like the surveillance is really something that I would love people to be more aware of. And that is why I talk about fascism so much, because it's creeping it's creeping, and the most insidious aspect of it is the infiltration of the apparatus of war into the British state and into actually most of the states of Europe, if not the entire world right now. And you've got to understand that what war is the only industry on earth which will never benefit human well-being, and it is designed that way. because as a species, we are way, way too productive. And if any other industry, if our productivity was being funneled into any other industry, then it would be probably in some way having to make human life slightly better. Even if it was funneled into the petrochemical industry, they'd have to make products. They'd have to make something go somewhere. You know what I mean? Whereas the military industrial complex, the war machine, you funnel money into that and all it does is kill people. And all it does is blow shit up and destroy shit so that you can send in your developers straight after so that they can profit more from that area that you have just destroyed. Like, it's the only industry on earth which is a negative at all times to human well-being. So this is the machinery of fascism, because you don't really get fascism unless you've got mass state-sanctioned violence, which is sort of what fascism is, because colonialism and imperialism is mass state-sanctioned violence abroad. Fascism is mass state-sanctioned violence domestically. So as we are funding more of the war machine to go and murder children abroad, we're also funding more of the war machine to surveil us here and to lock us up here. Like, the prison system is an extension of the war machine in our own country, which is oppressing political prisoners in the same way as they would be being oppressed in a foreign prison, or if they were being surveilled by drones. It's all a very much interlinked system, and it's these interlinks and interconnections that it's so important that people are more aware of in their everyday life. And kind of, I guess at this point, the only thing we can ask is awareness from people, but I would hope that it helps people to mobilize and to start working towards an alternative, like alternatives outside of the systems which we rely on today, because things are going to collapse eventually and we have to have an alternative.
Oh, that's not a bright outlook. What would you say is the kind of most poignant, almost out there example of the military industrial complex creeping into domestic UK policy or society?
Oh, 100%. You can just use Elbit as an example of that. It's an excellent example. Like, if you can go through the ministerial records. There's records of every meeting that various members of the government has had with lobbying firms or with companies or with representatives of companies. And you can see that I think they've had 50 plus meetings with executives from Elbit Systems, pre-prescription of Palestine action. Like, what do you think they were asking for in those meetings? Similarly with representatives from Barclays Bank. And this goes for so many companies, but I think in the spirit of Palestine action, in the spirit of the hunger strikers, then we should focus on Elbit Systems here, because that's really how you that's really how you address an issue, is you hone in on it, you focus down on it, you use that issue as an example to collapse in the whole system. So the reason why Elbit Systems is being targeted is, number one, it is Israel's largest weapons manufacturer. Number two, it does have multiple different factories in the UK, which are using UK labour, which are on UK soil. Like, some of them are held under subsidiaries of Elbit Systems, but you can trace this back. There are also various other different companies which are involved with Elbit Systems, which are all based here. And lobbying the government to prescribe Palestine action was seen as kind of like a blanket statement that they could say, like, you can't do anything to stop us. And that's just evidently not true. Like, the way that the Palestine action, that the hunger strikers have been able to drum up international support has just shown that it doesn't really matter how much money they're exchanging behind the scenes, even though obviously they're supposed to disclose what they exchange with their lobbying, but I doubt that they fully do. There's various other mechanisms for them to be able to get in front of politicians, decision makers, whatever. Like, there's the APGs, the all-party parliamentary groups. Like, there's various official channels and various non-official channels as well, because these are all human beings. Like, they're not being tracked at every single moment of their lives. They can go to a party, they can go to a to a lodge. They can do whatever they want to do, and meet these people in other circumstances where they're not being scrutinized, and make all the deals and backroom dealings that they want to do. So I think, the best example of the war machine being like fully infiltrated into the heart of the British government would be companies like Elbit. But it's not just coming from corporations at this point. It's also coming from like wider, I guess, like military organizations like NATO, like the EU. Like they've all been pivoting towards higher military budgets recently, and they always obviously will defer to Russia. They always say, we've got to do this, got to fight Russia. We've got to Russia could be coming for us any moment, and and I think eventually it's gonna be falling on deaf ears, because they need to understand that we know what war is now. Like maybe like hundreds of years ago, you could like convince people that war was like valiant, or that it was like, like honorable, or blah, blah, blah. Like I'm not dying for the Epstein class. Like you will not catch me on a battlefield with other povos fighting a bunch of other povos, whilst like some fat cat is there in his mansion, like being fed grapes by a 15-year-old. Like I don't. I just don't think that many people can have the wool pulled over their eyes that easily this time. I mean, the way which they're getting people to to go into the military now is because they're withholding things like education and pensions and in the US healthcare, and people will go into the military so they have actually access to the things which should be free for them. So at the same time, as much as fighting the war machine, we also need to be ensuring that these other needs are met, because this is how people can be enlisted into becoming part of the war machine. They have had other things taken away from them which they require. But I would hope that like now, because we're all a little bit more connected than we ever have been before in human history, that number one, we wouldn't be able to fathom murdering another person that we've never met. I hope we wouldn't be able to imagine murdering somebody that we have met.
I've read some comments on Instagram videos and YouTube videos that
really?
I think some people are, let's say, a bit more willing to do harm to others.
Really? Oh dear. I don't know. Maybe I just like, this might be an autistic thing. Apparently we're like quite bad at like thinking how other people think in their own minds. I just assume everyone's like a super lefty communist like me.
No, I don't think that's the case, to be honest. I don't think that's the case.
Are you telling me not everyone's a communist? You're breaking it to me here on this podcast.
No, the communism is not as widespread as you may think.
God damn it.
But in terms of fascism, I think the prescription of Palestine Action is such a like in-your-face indicator that we're descending into fascism, because it's not just them banning the group and criminalizing the group. They're also criminalizing speech around the group. Yeah. So now...
Intifada most recently.
Yeah, well, yeah, recently you can't say globalize the Intifada anymore. I don't know, maybe this will get... Maybe I have to bleep that out. I don't know. We might do that in post. They said
it was contextual.
Contextual is fine, okay. So. Yeah, but I saw people getting arrested.
The context.
I saw people getting arrested for it. And it's just like, this is clearly an encroachment on freedom of speech. This is the police enacting power or exacting their power in a way that they can use in other ways later on, like you were mentioning earlier. I mean, it's starting with globalizing Intifada now. Who knows what it might be. I want pie and mash,
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if they take away your pie and mash? Yeah. And then you're trying to get the pie and mash back, and then they make it illegal to say that you want pie and mash. Like, it sounds so hyperbolic, but it literally isn't. Like, we have like I said earlier, I don't know why I brought it up earlier, but we have like precedence-based law. Yeah. So every time every time one decision is made, that can then be called upon again and again and again to implement increasingly like draconian laws towards things like freedom of speech and expression. We've already had the UN Special Rapporteur, I think it was Francesca Albanese, don't quote me on that, saying that the UK is in the midst of extreme rollbacks on our right to freedom of expression. Which, once again, most people might not be feeling so viscerally yet, because the issues at hand might not be the ones which affect them most. But I always just want to bring up digital IDs. Like imagine, and this is not even difficult to imagine because they're definitely trying to push these things through. That when something that you don't like is happening and you are unable to legally protest, what are you going to do then? Like, what is the course of action when nothing is legal?
Yeah. Well, we'll see, I guess. Let's return to social media. TikTok. I've got here TikTok versus Instagram. I don't know. I was thinking there, but
I can talk about TikTok versus Instagram.
You're on both.
Yes.
One is currently owned by Meta, run by Meta, Facebook formerly, and the other is potentially going to be owned by some very staunch Zionists.
Yeah, I actually don't know how the ownership. I've been actually asking people this recently. I don't know how the ownership structure of TikTok is. Like, does this mean that us with TikTok off the British App Store, our app is now going to be owned by Larry Ellison and by his like Zionist cronies?
I guess so. It's just
Yeah.
TikTok as a platform, right?
I was like, oh, they're buying the entire of TikTok,
I think so.
as
Right?
in like off the Chinese.
Is that not the case?
Ah,
I don't think the Chinese don't even use their the
yeah,
TikTok,
they use
right?
Douyin.
They use something. They use
Yeah,
something
yeah,
else.
they have their own one. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's kind of worse than I thought. Then no,
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know. I thought it was buying the whole thing.
Because I thought that he was just buying American TikTok,
Okay.
and maybe EU TikTok is like a different thing, but then I don't know which one the British one would be in. Yeah, but we can just talk about TikTok in general terms, maybe, because that is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
That like Larry Ellison, express Zionist, second richest man on earth. His other company, Oracle, is like already very much involved in the military industrial complex in multiple countries. Already, I think, has some kind of like back end projects to do with the NHS, or is that Palantir?
I feel Palantir would be, but Oracle's big in the UK. I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Either way, there's like, you know what they
They're
know what they
involved in
say.
AI
like,
now as well, and
Yeah, exactly. Like Oracle, Palantir, they are very much already in the back end with some of our most sensitive information. It is actually Palantir, that has the contracts with the NHS, which they got during COVID.
of course they do.
Because this is what governments always do. Well, definitely the British government. There's multiple instances of this. They use like powers under like either wartime conditions, like emergency powers to implement something and then never roll it back.
Is it the shock doctrine that Naomi Klein called it or something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that. So they've done this multiple times before.
Yeah.
Just push something in when, everybody's kind of looking the other way because something absolutely awful is happening, and then literally never rescind it. I dread to think like what Palantir has access to.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Larry Ellison is a massive Zionist. I think also when it comes to content moderation, there's some really interesting, like terrifying stuff to look at regarding TikTok, because I think the woman who's been put like almost at the head of content moderation is also express Zionist.
Yeah.
But we all assumed that was going to happen after Netanyahu in that press conference was saying that the most important acquisition that was happening recently was TikTok, and then called it like the front lines of the new battleground or something. So
What do you think that says about the work you do and others like yourself who produce content, and also the interactions you have with just regular users?
I would say that he's probably absolutely right in that sense, that it is like the new battlefield, because we're in a war of information. Like we are bombarded constantly with so much information. And now obviously under the era of AI, under the era of constantly being accessible, and also like having constant access to yourself. Like I've said this to a lot of people, like being a creator, being a content creator is such an interesting act, because you know that you're forming like parasocial relationships with potentially hundreds of thousands of people, and also that you are getting them, you are talking to people in some of the most vulnerable positions that people will ever be in. You know, first thing in the morning they wake up, you know, when they're having the worst day of their life, like all of these different situations, you're talking to somebody. And it's this new dynamic, which has never been experienced, I don't think, like by the human species, of being able to access information constantly at all times. That information, really there being no way to verify in a lot of cases, whether it's true, made by AI, what the original actual source of the information is. Like, you can do your due diligence, don't get me wrong, but it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, and maybe migrating between a couple of different platforms. And most people, like under most circumstances, will actually not do that with the content that they are getting thrust upon them, because it is thrust upon us. You know, the apps, they are designed to be addictive.
Yeah.
They are designed to commodify your attention, because the most valuable thing that we have on this planet right now, I think, is probably attention. Like that is the primary currency, especially within like cloud capital, as Yanis Varoufakis would call it. He thinks we're in techno feudalism right now. Yeah, and like I'm veering on the side of like, yeah, maybe you're right. And maybe that is actually a good way to kind of like encompass what's happening. But it's such an interesting interaction being at that apical meristem, going back to the same thing, nice. You know, being like on the front line of this, because it does make you sort of like very hyper aware about the kind of content that you put out. What stories are you trying to bring to light? It's sometimes a bit scary. You do get a lot of like, I get more rape threats than death threats actually. And it's usually, I would say, probably from like Israeli like bot accounts. And it just makes me think like, I guess this is what Zionism is. Like just fantasizing about the rape of people. Like it's like, and it comes very naturally from the imaginary into the real. And then we now have now had, like, is it like whistleblowers and people who have been in Israeli detention, talking about their personal experiences of things like this, like whilst in captivity, like under the duty of care of the Israeli state, and they have actually been experiencing this, and it must be a very, very widespread issue. And then the fact that that's the main threat that I've had from Zionist accounts, you can see this very, very like, there's a very obvious thread between those things. So there's a lot of people telling on themselves, basically.
Yeah, Zionists have been doing a lot of that recently as well.
Oh yeah, every judgment is a confession. Yeah, absolutely every judgment.
What would you say, in your opinion, is the effect on AI on what you do? I mean, you spoke briefly about how some things are just AI and you can't even tell these days. So what do you think is going to happen?
Oh my God, this is like, I spend such an inordinate amount of time thinking about this, but like there's not really anywhere that you can like draw examples from, because this is all unprecedented. We are like fully like just stepping into the future here and not knowing what we're stepping onto or like into or whatever. So I think it's going to be extremely important for people to like verify everything that they're seeing. Just recently, in the last couple of months, like the way which AIs have been able to render people's like expressions, like obviously humans have a very developed sense of like what is human, what is not, you know, about the uncanny valley and like all that kind of stuff. So humans tend to be able to recognize like humanity and also authenticity, which is an interesting point when it comes to like the rise of like, I guess, social media journalism, because like Zach Valancy says, we're in like a vibe-based politics right now, but also in vibe-based information war. So you can kind of, I guess people in some sense are gauging the credibility of someone's argument and information and evidence based off that person's authenticity. But this is going to be something which we have to be so careful to look for when it comes to content which is coming from like any account. You kind of have to like start going back to people's accounts and checking, maybe months, maybe years in some cases. Like, is this real, or is really going to mess things up in future? I can really see this going extremely badly. Like, just as the models get more sophisticated, they get fed with more video, they'll be able to recreate things. Like, I know that a lot of like Zionist propaganda, for example, and like also in the same way, a lot of right-wing propaganda has been misusing clips, like taking them out of a context or taking them from a completely different area, saying that they're from somewhere else, and then people are like up in arms because I think the one I saw the other day was what was it? They were saying like, oh, Muslims are ripping down the Christmas decorations on this Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that one,
And did you see that one? And then where was it actually? And it was a Christmas tradition from somewhere.
I think it's an
like,
Egyptian Christmas tradition or something like that.
yeah, exactly. So then it turned out it was actually a tradition, and like this was something that they did every year, and like
there was gifts in the tree, and they'd go and pick them up.
Exactly. So imagine this, but just on a scale which is like we cannot even fathom. And then also there being no alternative story to kind of vindicate the video.
Is it even sustainable at that point to be online, like as a viewer, as a content creator?
I think at that point we're going to have to probably get off For You, I would say. And maybe like curate yourself if you are actually using your algorithm, your TikTok, whatever, your Instagram primarily for informing yourself about the world. It's at that point that you have to find your creators that you are credible and you enjoy the way that they explain what is happening to you, and kind of stick with that. And then, you know, expand out from there. Hopefully the algorithms will be able to tell what is real and what is not, because I've had like my content taken down before for being AI, but I think that is from mass reporting.
Right.
Yeah, I think I get a lot of like, because I've been doxxed on Zionist Twitter like a couple of times.
Wow.
And especially in the videos that have done like quite well, they get reposted on Twitter, and then that's when I start getting all the threats. And I think that means I'm on the radar of maybe a couple of these like bot farms or something. So I'll get my content like mass reported, and it gets taken down for the most random reasons, like being AI. And I'm like,
it's clearly not.
What? What are you talking about?
Yeah. You post, you said, mainly on Instagram and TikTok. Which platform do you prefer at this stage?
At this stage, Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though Instagram, I've had my videos actually fully removed. On TikTok, they tend to get put into, what is it, like community guidelines violation. Then I have to fight them for a bit, and then I have to like open some tickets up, and then I have to like explain to them that I'm raising awareness, and then like it's my freedom of expression. And then usually I get my videos like reinstated on there. But the comment sections are very bad these days. Very, very bad. And like I said, I think it's because I've been picked up by a couple of these like bot farms. I'm not really sure what the situation is going on the other end. But the comment sections are very, very like, right wing, everything under the hunger striker, the videos about the hunger strikers. It was like their choice, like why don't they just eat, like da 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 da. And this has been pretty consistent on Instagram. The content tends to like have reach for longer, I think, as well. So I'll still be getting my content reposted onto other people's stories 2 weeks, 3 weeks after originally posting, and then the comment section seems to be a lot more like constructive, like people bringing new information to light, or people having like a bit of an outpouring about something which tugged on their heartstring or something during the video. Like a lot more constructive, and also I think even views might be better on Instagram recently. With TikTok, it's extremely variable. extremely variable. And often you'll have a video that's like taking off, and then it will get content moderated. It'll get like violation of some kind of community guideline, and like it drops off, and it's never gonna get to that position in the algorithm again. But I do sometimes think that might be a reflection of the fact that I'm monetizing my TikTok content. So I'm like being like even more scrutinized than otherwise.
Right. It's very interesting how, these platforms, well, TikTok not yet, but they do have a Zionist content moderator. But Meta is owned by a staunch Zionist, Mark Zuckerberg, and I think there have been employees in Meta, like high up employees, who have bragged about the fact that they take down content that's anti-Zionist.
Yeah.
And yet these are the same vehicles that are used by content creators such as yourself, such as others, hundreds of thousands around the world, to spread awareness, to spread a narrative that is not approved by the establishment, by the so-called Epstein class, as you'd put it. And it's a bit, I don't know, it's kind of...
It's like such a contradiction.
Yeah.
It's such a contradiction.
It's a bit of a triumph to be able to use the
tools of the oppressor.
Yeah. In that way.
Take them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously. I think about this all the time, and like, I want to migrate to another platform. I would love to have somewhere else to post my stuff. I just recently got a Substack, self-plug. It's Phoebe O'Brien at Substack. And there you can post videos, whatever, but you have to go where the people are. Like, you have to go where people are spending their time. Otherwise, you're shouting into either a void or echo chamber. If there was an app that was just for pro-Palestinian activists or like well-wishers or whatever, then that's not actually the audience that I'm trying to address. Like, I make my content as a white British person specifically to target other people who are white and British genuinely. And also to say things which people who do not have those layers of privilege within this society would not be able to say, or would technically be able to say, but might face more consequences for it. Because to recognize your privilege is to understand that it is actually a responsibility. And like, you have to be able to utilize that for, the liberation of all peoples. And that's kind of why I make content in the first place, I guess, is like, someone's got to say it. Someone's got to say it. And I've got a death wish. No, I don't. I just, I just don't have that much to lose.
Yeah, maybe we can, like, on a final note, just talk a bit about that privilege, in terms of what you believe you can say. As a Palestinian myself, and with these new draconian laws coming in, or draconian measures taken by the government in terms of arresting and even sometimes stripping citizenship. So for me, there's only so much I can't have. Even if I oppose actions of prescribed groups, right? I know I can't have an honest conversation, right? But where do you stand on this yourself, and how would you say that affects the content you create?
When it comes to like censoring myself, I am more conscious of just like how far is this content going to go in the algorithm. That's always my primary concern, is like, how much reach can I get with this? Like, by using this word, am I going to prevent this like important information from getting out? But kind of through a process of trial and error, I've like realized like, no, you can say most stuff. And as long as like the video is like hitting these things I spoke about earlier, like hook in the first 3 seconds, get everything in you want to say in the first 20 seconds, like et cetera, then I'm pretty happy with like the reach of the content. So when it comes to moderating what I say, I don't really do I don't really moderate it very much, because if anything, I would like to embolden other people who look like me and who have the same level of privilege as me to go out there on the internet and say stuff like this, because like, we have safety in numbers, guys. Like, the more that we go out there and we are fighting for liberation, the more that we go out there and we're dissenting against the government and like being subversive, the more difficult it's going to be to get each one of us. And the other thing is that like the stuff that I say online, like, yeah, I feel like it has to be said. And like I said, I am protected in ways that other people who have the possibility of having their citizenship stripped from them, I'm protected in ways that like you guys are not. And that is like my responsibility then at that point to use that, like that one thing that becomes a privilege in this one context, you know? Like, I don't have another passport. I don't have the possibility of getting another passport. So they literally can't take my citizenship away. Like, I am as British as they come, you know. My mum's family is from a village just outside Leicestershire, hasn't moved in hundreds of years. My dad's family's Irish, and like Irish and Welsh, you know, like can't get any more UK than me. You're really gonna take away my citizenship? And if it happens to me, then I think like that would really cause some problems, because a lot of people would be able to identify with me at least enough to be like, whoa. There's very few things a person can do that is bad enough to deserve this. So maybe it's a little bit of like wanting to expose the system. Like, I'm kind of waiting for it. I'm kind of like, okay, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Let's see. And then let's see like what kicks off if you do try. But I'm really hoping it doesn't actually have to come to that.
Hopefully it doesn't. I mean, we are descending into fascism, but maybe not that quickly. Hopefully it's not that quickly.
Yeah.
And maybe something can be done about it.
Yeah. That's it.
But yeah.
Call to action. Let's end on a call to action.
Yes, let's end fascism. And let's end the descent to fascism. Dr. Phoebe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Done. Brilliant.
Damn, I'm sorry, my guy. I was like...